So first of all, thank you for joining me this evening. I really appreciate it, and looking forward to getting to talk about Cumberland and your
For
coaching
sure.
career and your wrestling career. And the first question I have for you is, how and where did you find wrestling, and in what way would you say it's impacted your life?
Uh, ah, g- Good question. Cool story on my behalf. I didn't start wrestling till I was in 11th grade. I was 16 years old. I'm from a small town in Florida called Belle Glade, Florida,
Mhm.
and everybody knows in Florida football is king.
Right.
So I grew up my whole childhood as a young man playing football. Was pretty good at football. All the way up to about ninth grade. Then I realized, start looking at my size and height,
Mhm.
about 110 pounds. I was starting to realize that wasn't going to be the route to go, and what made me realize that is I played freshman football. I went out for JV football the next year, and our football team was 3 time state champions in a row. They were
Oh wow.
really good. A lot of Division 1 athletes on the football team. So went out for the JV team. They wouldn't even give me a helmet. So
Oh,
I'm there practicing. It's a small town, it's a poor town, poor school district. So they didn't have a lot of helmets, and I didn't get one. So despite having a real good youth career in football, I was one of the best in town as a kid. Then I started to understand that football wasn't going to be my future. So
mhm.
I had a science teacher. He had been trying to get me to wrestle since freshman year, and I really wasn't interested. And then I'm in junior year. I'm not playing a sport at all. He comes into one of my classes, pulls me out of class, talks to me about wrestling. And I wasn't playing a sport, and I was an athlete my whole childhood, so I figured I'd try it out, and that's how I got involved. I was 11 in 11th grade. First year, I made it to state. Um, I got my butt kicked that first semester, but I was a great athlete. After
Mhm.
figuring a few things out, I was able to qualify for state my first ever year wrestling. My second year, I placed at state.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so then I went to, from there, my senior year I placed, and then I went to college after that.
Now, kind of
So
staying
went
on
to
that
college on
topic.
2 years of wrestling.
I'm sorry. What?
So I went to college after wrestling only 2 years.
Well, that's incredibly impressive, and I was thinking it over in my head, especially to be able to qualify that first year and then
Right,
place going into that second year.
right.
And you mentioned after that, going into college, and that goes into my next question. So after finishing out your high school career at Glade Central High School, you
Yeah.
made the move to Campbellsville to wrestle in college. What made you choose Campbellsville as the place where you wanted to continue your academic and athletic career?
Well, Campbellsville it was my uh third school. Um, Initially I went to Seatonka University. So you
Oh,
probably
okay.
when you were doing your research, probably missed that because it no longer exists.
Oh,
The
really?
school closed. So it was a school in Huron, South Dakota. So I'm a little 115-pound Florida boy, going from South Florida to South Dakota,
Mhm.
to wrestle. Um, my situation, where I'm from, you kind of have to leave the city to make something of yourself if you're not playing football,
Mhm.
so I got out of there, and that was my only offer coming out of high school. Was at in Huron, South Dakota, and I made a decision to go. So uh, I chose Huron because that was my only option. I had to get out of Belglade, and that was the only way for me to do that. And so I went to Huron. My mom, who didn't go to college. Nobody in my family went to college. My immediate family went to
Mhm.
college, so didn't know much about the process. So she did the best she can. My parents, my mom gave me $100, and we couldn't afford a ticket to South Dakota, so I got on a Greyhound. It took me 27 hours,
Wow.
um, and I had the two big bags, and I'm 115 pounds, and I had these bags just as tall as me and probably weighed more than me. I'm lugging those around from bus to bus to get to Huron. And that's how I made it happen. That's how I started my journey wrestling in college.
Now, once you switched over from South Dakota to Campbellsville, what was it like just in general adjusting to that college room and college environment?
Uh, Seville, I had been at Huron for a year, who was what was ended up being a bottom tier team in NAIA. So
Mhm.
we were uh amongst the bottom, if I remember correctly, in terms of where we were finishing at a national tournament.
Right.
Now, I made another stop in between there to Dana College. That it was
Mhm.
a top tier team. So we won a national championship when I was there. So went from a bottom tier team to the top team. So
Right.
took a lot from there. That was a great experience for me. It helps me today as a coach, just kind of having those different experiences, but that contrast in those different programs. And then Campbellsville, after I left Dana College because the coach left, the coach that recruited me left, and I kind of want to get a little closer to home.
Right.
Campbellsville was a newer program at the time, so I think they were in their third year or so. It was a pretty new program, and it was also a program that was on the rise. And I had a buddy there that was at Huron with me that had transferred to Campbellsville when Huron closed, and he was my roommate. He was my still one of my best friends to this day.
Mhm.
So that's the reason I transferred, and it was a great school, very nice school. Supported the wrestling program, and still to this day, it's a very nice school and supports the wrestling program. But the program was still growing. We were still kind of building that program. We had some really good guys in there. And it was good just to get in there and be kind of a little closer to home in some warmer
Mhm.
weather, even though it's Kentucky, and compete in the South like I was used to doing. Frankie James is a very good technician. Like he taught me a lot that I use today in terms of technique, practice structure, the way I go about my training. Like I tell everybody that he's probably one of the best technicians I've been around ever, and I've been around a lot of wrestling. And the stuff he showed me and the stuff he taught us, I still use to this day, and it's still up to date. So I was a great experience at Campbellsville, as an athlete and as a coach. So it was had some of the best uh times of my life, and met some my favorite people while at Campbellsville for sure.
Now, ultimately, while you were competing in college, believe three-time NAIA qualifier
Yep.
and 3-year starter as a Tiger. What were your goals ultimately in college?
Well, I wanted to win a national championship. I was always there with all the best guys.
Mhm.
I think what got in my way now as a coach is I just never had the experience. Like I still was new to wrestling. And I was very enthusiastic about wrestling and still am, so I would teach myself a lot. Um, and I was still kind of new, so a lot of the stuff that I was trying to learn wasn't translating as fast as I needed it to. In college, I relied a lot on my athleticism, strength, athleticism, speed, um, uh, and so I think me being a newer wrestler, I was getting better every year, but never
Mhm.
could hit that mark. And I think it was due to, I started wrestling as a junior, definitely still could have got it done. I beat a lot of the guys that were um on the podium consistently. So I beat quite a few of those guys, and were in matches with national champion, in overtime matches with kids that were winning national titles and all that stuff.
Right.
So I definitely probably could have got it done, but the experience factor, I feel like my wrestling was up to par, my tactics weren't up to par. I didn't fully understand the sport while I was competing. I didn't have the proper tactics, didn't know how to pace myself through a match. All right, didn't know how to control certain positions. I feel like I just ran out of time. Just had a little bit uh not enough experience and just kind of ran
Mhm.
out of time there. But it was a great experience. It's that wrestling in college parlayed into what I am today. So there's no complaints from me at all.
Well, I definitely think, like we mentioned earlier, after only wrestling, for 2 years in high school and being able to turn over and wrestle in college and have that, level of success of being a 3-year starter and
Hmm.
being a three-time qualifier. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were ranked sixth nationally at one point
Right.
um, during your career. So I think that definitely is an impressive resume, sorry, for the competition side. Now turning over into where your impressive resume continues, what got you into coaching?
Well, it wasn't planned at all. I was going to I went to school to be an athletic trainer.
Hmm.
Um, Once I was finished with my eligibility, I had another semester left. Uh, so loved the sport. I was more of a quiet athlete. Like all my teammates, they used to call me the silent assassin. I didn't really speak much, but when it's time to wrestle, I was the guy at 25, so I'm starting off every duel, so guys are looking at me to get it going, so I got that nickname from not talking to anybody. I was pretty quiet. But when I was done, I loved the sport, so I asked coach, could I help out with the wrestling? I was still on scholarship for that semester, so I just wanted to help out coaching. And stay around the sport. And then, man, I took to it like a glove. It was instantly something I love to do. It opened me up. I spoke more, I talked more, I was more sociable with the guys I was just on the team with and all the new guys that were coming in. So my love for wrestling and my love for helping people just kind of opened me up there, and we were off to the races. And I was a young guy, had just graduated, trying to be a coach and embracing that. I had a son, a son. I think my son was like 2 at the time.
Hmm.
I loved it so much. I decided very early on that it was something I wanted to pursue and do, and I did it to the best of my abilities, and I did it as hard as I possibly could early on, to try to carve out a path for me to eventually be a head coach one day once I realized I had a passion for it. Um, so uh, I thank Frankie James for giving me that opportunity, even though I probably did look like the best prospect for coaching early because of my shyness and the way I communicate, lack of communication, or lack of socializing.
Hmm.
But he still gave me that opportunity, and I appreciate him forever for that. And it turned out for the best, and it worked out for me. And I think if you ask Frankie, he was satisfied with how I performed as an assistant. I was there for 4 years, so I feel like I did a good job for the team while I was there, and it just kind of worked out. I kind of just fell into it.
But definitely seems like that time at Campbellsville, especially as an assistant, like you said, was a great way of being introduced into the coaching scene. It's a familiar spot, and it's where you can continue to
Right.
have success.
Right.
Now, after Campbellsville, you make the move down to Darden State in Albany, Georgia, and you're a coach there. What was that time like down in Georgia?
Man, I had so much fun, man, with those kids. You know, uh, I don't know if you know, Mason, but junior college, different animal.
Right.
So it's nothing like coaching in high school or at a 4-year university. Um, next Netflix has this series called Last Chance U,
Mhm.
where it follows junior college teams. And I can 100% relate to those guys, those coaches on that series, and what they go through, and their approach to coaching. But junior college, it was fun, but it's a different animal. You're dealing with all freshmen and sophomores, so all young guys. And those guys are in junior college for a reason. So for me, it presented an opportunity to help kids that maybe didn't have the grades or did come
Right.
from the best circumstances, to ultimately accomplish their goals of being at a 4-year school and competing at a 4-year school. And it fit me well, because of my background. I'm from Belle Glade, Florida.
Mhm.
It's a pretty rough area. So I had seen a lot. I went from Belle Glade to South Dakota to Nebraska to Kentucky. So I had seen a lot and been around a lot, and I feel like that prepared me perfectly for junior college. And we was able to get that Darden State College turned around and have the best finishes in the program
Mhm.
ever. Had the most All-Americans ever, had 2 national champs while I was there, the first 2 national champs ever in that program. So I feel like I was just a great fit, and it was in South Georgia down there, and the type of athletes I was getting, being in that area, I was a great fit for Darden State at the time, and we were able to turn it around. And I had great assistants, Albert White, who's at Little Rock. He's an assistant at Little Rock. He's wrestled at Oklahoma State, Division I guy. He was one of my assistants down there for a year. And then I had a Carl Reed, who went to Newberry College and fought MMA for a long time, was a
Mhm.
sports agent and coached at Limestone. So I had 2 great guys while I was there as assistants, and I had a lot of fun with those kids. It was a lot of laughs, and we were doing well, and it was just a great experience. Had they kept that program, I could have stayed there for forever. It was just that good of an experience for me.
Oh, so they eventually dropped the program?
Yeah, they closed. I mean, actually, it was another school closure.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah. So in my career as an athlete, Satonka, I went there first. They closed that school. Um, Dana College is where I went second. That school didn't close while I was there, but it's closed now. That school's also closed. And Darden State College merged with Albany State College.
Oh,
Georgia,
okay.
the state of Georgia started merging their state schools. So they merged it and made it all just one college. So Darden State College no longer exists. So we didn't have they were gonna they dropped the wrestling program before they did that. So
Mhm.
they dropped the program one year and the next year they merged the school. So that school
Okay.
no longer exists either.
That's that's
Yeah.
crazy. One, how they dropped the program, especially
Right.
after that great success.
Right.
It kind of like it shows a little bit how I feel like wrestling, in a sense, when they look at the money factor, it kind of gets overlooked,
Right.
and they don't realize how big of a community it actually is.
Right. Right.
Um,
Definitely
but
where we were at.
oh yeah, well down in Georgia, I still feel like um, wrestling is growing everywhere, but
Right.
in the Southeast, it continues to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And states like Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and even Tennessee, there are still some schools that some high schools that don't have programs, and
Right. Yeah.
it's just a sport that's going to continue to grow if you look at the numbers of participation. So hopefully, that differential of program to no program evens out, and that number of programs goes up here soon.
I hope so. I mean, Georgia's definitely a wrestling state now.
Right.
Uh, but most of that's from Central at the time, at least. It was from us,
Hmm.
Atlanta area and north. A lot of that, a little bit of south of Atlanta, maybe, yeah, but South Georgia, it was a little different. They maybe didn't value wrestling as much down there at that time. Um, and definitely, I mean, Darden State, we were having some success, but they had other priorities in terms of sports. And I understood that, but I'm about winning no matter what. So we worked with what we had, and we got some things accomplished, and it was still a great experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely the value from those type of experiences in that time there is invaluable in a sense. It's always there.
Right.
And kind of moving on from Darden State after that, you make the move to Cumberland University up in Kentucky. What made you choose Cumberland?
Well, I needed a job. So like they were dropping the program. Cumberland at their position was uh opened up, I think like in the middle of the season. So, of course I applied. I didn't hear anything back for months. I think they were waiting until season was over to start searching.
Mhm.
Um, but I applied and I was, trying to get my name in there and uh right after season, a few weeks went by and then I got a call for an interview. Came up, loved the area. Loved my boss, our athletic director. He's awesome. Love him.
Mhm.
He's from PA. He supports wrestling. We had an assistant athletic director at the time. That's a big Penn State, big Kel Sanderson, big Penn State fan. Loves wrestling. Comes to all the
Oh, wow.
matches. Our president here at Cumberland wrestled in high school. So I had never seen that type of support for wrestling. Um, and I knew, and it's a great area, a great school. So I knew it could be a great opportunity for me if I came in and I worked hard and I did my thing. I had a few other options at the time too. So I decided to come to Cumberland, and I feel like it's been a pretty good decision for me.
Well, you mentioning that support, and I think that's such an important factor, especially when it comes to, college athletics, is, you need the support of admissions and the university in general to really, be out there. And I think with that support on top of the great success y'all have had, especially while you've been at the helm, while I was doing my research, you look into how many All-Americans there have been.
Right.
I believe crowned the national champion in 2022
Mm-hmm.
and just great success across the board. And I definitely think that um, there's more to come. It's just scratching the surface.
Right.
Um, in the upcoming seasons. But all in all, kind of wrapping up and going into our last question. After everything, wrestling high school, college, and continuing to coach on the collegiate scene, what does wrestling mean to you?
Everything. I wouldn't be here without wrestling. Like I said, I'm from Belglade, Florida, small town. Right, it's a lot of things I could have got into um, when I could no longer play football. There was plenty of options for me to go the wrong direction, and I'm not sure I would not have went in that direction if I didn't have wrestling. You know, uh, uh, my coaches in high school wouldn't let me quit. Right,
Mhm.
so we've all seen those guys that start out wrestling in high school. They don't really know what it's about. I was that guy. I don't know what wrestling's about. I had never even seen a wrestling match. You get in there and the practice was so hard. I've never done anything that hard in my life
Right.
in the practices. I must have not showed up and tried to quit 3 times. Right? My coach, he would come knock on my door and get me and bring me to practice. And I appreciate Frank Lasagna and Coach Moore for that because I would not be here without those guys making me stay out, convincing me that I could be good and that I can accomplish something in the sport. So it like I know there's a lot of saying like wrestling saved my life, but it genuinely saved my life. It did a lot for me. It did a lot for my family. It did a lot
Right.
for my kids. Without wrestling, I'm not sure where I would have landed or if I went to college or let alone graduated college and now I'm mentoring and coaching other young men through college. Like that's just crazy to me. And it's all because of wrestling. So it's a great sport. It's taught me discipline, taught me hard work, taught me how to lock in, taught me not everything's easy. Things are hard. Keep pushing. It humbles you. It makes you a humble person, being
Mhm.
able to take a loss, bounce back, keep going. We have all got our butts kicked before. Like it's a humbling sport. It's everything. So when people talk about what it means to me, it means literally it's I don't know where I would be today without it.
Right.
So I'm just fortunate and grateful that I'm still involved in the sport, and I can continue to pass down what the sport gave me to others. And that's where I think my passion for coaching came from, because it just came out of nowhere. I didn't know I would like it. I didn't know I would take to it. You know, it was just something I was trying to do to
Right.
finish out my last semester. And I instantly loved it, you know, because wrestling had done so much for me. And I instantly fell in love with helping wrestling do a lot for others. So to answer your question, literally everything.
Well, I think that's a great answer, and you hit the nail right on the head. The lessons are truly, they truly continue passed on your career and everything,
Right.
and it's always, there in the back of your mind. There's always a connection to it, and there's so many benefits both on and off the mat from the sport, and I think that's why it's one of the greatest sports out there.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. It was great to get to talk about your, athletic career and your coaching career. And best of luck to you all at Cumberland. Hoping y'all have a great season this year, and I'll be following and seeing how y'all are doing. But like I said, I appreciate it as always. It's great to get to talk about everything.
Great to talk to you too. And thank you for having me on, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep getting that word out there. Keep interviewing people. It's a great thing for the state of Tennessee wrestling. Keep doing it, big dog.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, you too.